Okay. So while we're not able to come together in person at this time, we're really pleased to provide many ways for you to stay connected to William Patterson and your alumni community in online and virtual formats. So I encourage you to take advantage of the many virtual programs and activities that we're offering, like the virtual book club, social events, lifelong learning opportunities, career development programs, and more. And if you're looking for additional career resources, I encourage you to sign on to Handshake, where you can browse job postings, attend virtual webinars, access career workshops, and more. And for recent graduates, I just want to point out that members of the most recent graduating class have access to the full resources of the Career Development Center up to 1 year after graduation. And I also encourage you to join the official William Patterson Alumni LinkedIn group to make connections and network with fellow alumni. So before we get started, I just want to share some details on how tonight's session will go. So first, upon entry, your microphones were muted. We kindly ask that you please keep your microphone muted during the session. There will be times where you'll have the chance to unmute and ask questions or share a comment maybe later on in the program. And you'll also be able to submit questions in the chat box. And we'll take some of those at the end of the session during the Q&A. I just want to make a note that today's session is being recorded and it will be available on demand on our alumni YouTube channel after the session. So let's go ahead and get started. This session is going to cover before and after resume examples that show you what works, resume do's and don'ts that will debunk any myths and get you the results that you're looking for career and industry changers, how to relate your prior experience to what you're looking to do next, how to address gaps in your background, what you need to know about adapting your resume for your LinkedIn profile, how to improve your odds of being found on LinkedIn, and the keys to meaningful networking and creating powerful interview pitch, including the answer to tell me about yourself. And so with that being said, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight. Rob Hellman is the president of Helming Career Consulting. He's helped over 1,000 individuals achieve career success and dozens of organizations improve effectiveness via executive coaching and workshops. Rob is a Get5 certified senior career and executive coach and a LinkedIn certified professional recruiter. He's been in private practice since 2003. As a career and executive coach, Rob helps clients almost every day to define and achieve their career and job search goals, develop as managers and leaders, and navigate through challenging work situations. Rob is a sought-after speaker and has delivered hundreds of seminars, workshops, and keynotes to corporations, higher education institutions, professional associations, government agencies, and nonprofits. Rob is a regular contributor to Forbes. His insights have also appeared in media outlets such as the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the Chicago Tribune, CBS News, CNN Money, ABC News, NBC News, Consumer Reports, Glassdoor.com, and many others. So again, we're so thrilled to have Rob with us tonight, and I will turn it over to him.
Thanks so much for that nice introduction, Jenna. Hi, everybody. Welcome. And so before we dive into the content, I just want to mention that I'll be happy to share the slides with you. You're going to see a lot of examples of like resumes and things like that. So you can get those examples if you just go to this link, bit.ly/WP32321, meaning today's date. You don't even need www in front of it. Just type in bit.ly/WP32321. And you'll get the slides. And you'll get also a LinkedIn profile checklist, which we're going to talk about more later. So what we're going to cover, so that's that. And what we're going to cover is your resume, then your LinkedIn profile, and including what's different from your resume about your profile, and when you should try to keep them the same, when you need to change them. And we're also going to cover your pitch, which you want to use in informational meetings and interviews. Your interview pitch and your informational meeting networking pitch. So, all right, so let's dive into it. We're going to start with resumes. Now, I would say feel free to ask questions. There'll be an extended Q&A as Jenna mentioned, after I'm done talking, probably about starting around 10 after 7. But you can type the questions in at any time. But I'm going to start by asking you a question. So the question I have is, and this is a poll we're going to put up, which statement is true? That your resume should fit on one page, you leave off experiences over 10 years old, both of these or none of these. So just take the poll, take 30 seconds to do the poll, and let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think?
Okay, I see the responses coming in. Rob, are you seeing the
Yeah,
poll?
I am.
Okay, perfect.
Totally. Yeah, thank you. I think we got enough. We're close to the Met full. So I guess I'll end the polling and hopefully I'll see the results here. Okay, here are the results. So I'm going to share. I'm sharing the results, and you could see that most of you, it's like a tie between both and none of the above, with a couple of you saying one or the other. So the answer is, and sorry I don't have a drum roll, I have to be more prepared, but the answer, sorry, both of the above, and the people who said one or the other, but the answer is, I'm going to stop sharing the results. None of the above, none of the above. And the reason it's none of the above is because about whether it's one page or 2 pages or whatever, or it's 10 years old or 5 years or 15 or whatever, and forget about all these rules. It's not about these individual rules. The only rule you should care about, there's only one rule, not all these things that people tell you all the time. You talk to 5 different resume experts, you get 5 different sets of rules. Forget about all that. Just remember this one rule, that your pitch, meaning why they should hire you and not the competition, needs to jump off the page of the resume and into their brain in the 15 seconds or less they're going to look at your resume. In fact, some research says it's only 8 seconds. It's so fast that just in a few seconds they're scanning your resume and they're saying no or maybe. So I want you to get to maybe. And anything you do to help you get to maybe and not no is good. That's it. If it helps you get considered, then it is a good thing to do with your resume. If it's not doing that, then it is not a good thing, and you don't want it, right? So we'll see. We're going to talk more about this stuff. So it's beside the point, like 1 page or 2 pages. Sometimes it needs to be 1. Sometimes it needs to be 1, meaning that every word counts, right? You don't want extra. You want it to be as concise as possible. And if it's 2 pages, all that means is you're repeating things or you're being overly verbose. Sometimes, if you're very junior or if you're still in college, it's hard to even see why you need a 2-page resume, but sometimes you need it. Sometimes you do. In fact, some executives, very senior, they had a lot of experience, have even 3 or 4-page resumes that do really well. So there is no one rule about this. Same thing with this 10 years old experience, right? We're going to talk more about this, but sometimes the stuff you've done 2 or 3 years ago is now obsolete. So just leave it off. Don't put on stuff that no one's going to care about. And the stuff that you did that was really old sometimes is the thing that is most relevant. Then it needs to go on. We're going to get into that more later, but that's the idea. That's the spirit of it, right? Whatever will help you to get considered in those few seconds you're looking at your resume is good. Forget the other rules. All right. So now let's really dive into this and you'll get a better sense of what I mean. We're going to see this come alive. So let's take a look at this before resume. Now, clients often say to me, Rob, is this resume good? And I say, well, I don't know. Who are you targeting? Who's the audience? Like, if I don't know who the audience is, I can't tell you if the resume is good. And this gets to a larger point. Your job search is all sales and marketing. That's what you're doing in a job search. You want to be the best salesperson in the world, the best marketer in the world. And any great salesperson, any great marketer will tell you, if you're good, you got to know who the audience is to sell and market effectively. You got to start with the audience, what resonates with them. So in this case, so that's the first thing, right? You got to be clear about your audience, your target, if you're writing your resume. In this case, Susan's target was senior finance executive at a big media company. Think something like Viacom or something like that, right? So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to tell me what you think of this resume. Use the chat feature. Give me some specifics about what you like, what you don't like, what works, what doesn't work, and keep in mind her job target, right? Finance executive in a big media company. Is this a good resume? And if yes, why? And if not, why not? So give me your thoughts. I'll give you a minute to look it over, and then I'll look at the chat, and then we're going to look at the after resume. So go ahead. Use the chat feature. You should all see it. Okay, why don't we stop? Great. I really appreciate all these comments. They're great. I want to go through a few of them. Okay, and then we're gonna go. We're gonna look at the after resume. Okay, so I just want to see what we have here, right? Uh, Need to provide specific examples for experience. Well, I think if what you mean is like example, well, she does give examples here, like led the fast track sales process, right? But for as an example, I'm just pulling out one bullet, right? But I would say maybe for consultant, there's sort of high level examples like assist a company in the post sale, whatever. Um, but there's no accomplishments. It's all responsibility. So it's a little bit of a different angle. I would say that like the responsibilities are not as strong as the accomplishments. They, a lot of your competitors are going to have the same responsibilities. How well you executed on those responsibilities are going to differentiate you. So that's something I would point out. Okay. Let's see what else. Too vague under consultant. Well, I think that's part of it. I'm also looking, resume doesn't reflect Susan's target job. So if you combine that with too vague under consultant, I think it's job titles don't indicate finance. That's another, if you put those all together, you're really getting at something here. So for example, like this job, like remember, she's going for a senior finance executive in a big media company. Look at this job here, the most recent job at Carmen Health Analytics. There's nothing about finance, as someone mentioned, right? And it's all about like customer service function. What does that have to do with finance? Finance. What does that have to do with media? Nothing, you know? So it's not great. And the second job is positions her more for what she's looking for, right? But even then, as somebody mentioned, there's no finance or finance executive or something in the job title. It's vice president and consultant. So that's a missed opportunity there. Okay. So I agree with that. I agree that it's too wordy. When you start seeing a big paragraph like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 lines under vice president, people are scanning this thing. They're skimming it with their eyes, and they are just need things to jump off the page, jump out at them. So they don't want to read these big paragraphs. I wouldn't have more than 3 lines in any block of text in a resume. I would say 1 line is the best, 2 is okay, and 3 lines is the most. Okay, so this is like they don't want to read it. It's too much. You probably can break it up or take out some words, split it out into bullets, something like that, right? Let's see what else we have here. The summary could be tighter. I think what I would say is the summary could be targeted. So when I'm looking at this, I appreciate the comment, but I think by tighter, you mean more targeted. Well, I'm looking at this and I say, oh, expert qualifications in financial planning and analysis, budgeting, accounting. Well, does she want to be an accountant? Does she want to be a budget analyst? Like, what is she going for? Is she a junior person? Did she just get her degree? Is she more senior? Like, it's not clear, and she's actually going for a very senior job, right? But it's not clear from this. You wouldn't know it from the summary section. And those job targets are very different. If you're a junior financial analyst, it's totally different responsibilities than if you're chief financial officer, right? So the CFO has budgets and team leadership and strategy and all that. And the analyst is just looking at the individual things that she or he needs to analyze, right? So anyway, I think you're hitting on a lot of things here. So so thank you for your comments. Let me see if there's anything else I want to share. I think that's basically it. So let's take a look now at the after resume. And if you look at the after resume, you could see, why don't you tell me what you all think? Go in the chat feature again. Take another 30 seconds. What do you think? Is it an improvement? If not, and is it not an improvement? What do you like, don't like? And just be specific in the chat feature. Go ahead. Tell me what your thoughts are. Okay, great. I like what I'm seeing here. So let me give you my thoughts on your comments, and thank you for the comments. So, oops, hold on. Let me see what we have here. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Bullets pop out. Yeah, finance jumps off the page. Absolutely, right away. In 1 second, you see that she's a senior finance executive. She's not a junior analyst. Like in 1 second at the top of the page, right? In 4 seconds, you see what differentiates her from the competition. Like she's got this media industry experience. She even lists the company, so they have to go looking on page 2 to see she worked at Viacom or wherever, right? NBC Universal, HarperCollins. And she's got this other differentiated experience right up here, financial planning and analysis, all that. Let's see what else you have. I like the headline with the job title and specifics underneath. Well, yeah, the specifics, it's like your greatest hits. It's like, so they don't have to go looking on page 2 for that great thing you did. You have it right up there at the top. So they see it, you know they're going to see it because they're always looking at the top of the resume first. And if they like what they read up here, they'll look for it where you did it in the body of the resume. So you can actually repeat this, what's here in the summary section. So let's see what other comments we have here. Yes, use data from her experience to support why she'd be best for the position. Right. So she said, like, look, I'd be good because I reduce costs by as much as 25%. Like, grew profits from negative 10% to plus 15%. So she's giving evidence, right? The evidence is important. Don't just say what you were responsible for, but say how well you did it. Give the evidence that you'd be great at this. Go beyond responsible for. Okay. Yes, the white space makes it easier to read. The bold portion, somebody mentioned that, right? Bolding can be good because if they're skimming through it, you make it easier for them to do that if you use the bolding in a smart way. So what she didn't do was bold like a whole bullet. It's too much bolding, and it'll ruin, and it won't look good. It'll ruin the power of bolding to help you. Just a few words here or there. You got to be very sort of. It's a science and an art to bold properly. You don't want to bold too much. You got to pick and choose. So she said, but if they skim through, they'll say, global experience, group profits from negative 10 to plus 15, received an award. She knows about strategic plans, reduced costs, managed staffs of up to 60. She's skimming through it. 20 million in revenue, adding over 10 million. So they just skim through that. They're like, this looks interesting. I'm going to have to read more closely. That's what the bolding is. Okay. So let's see. Highlights key point of experience and companies well. I would agree. Yes, highlights the accomplishments. Yep, I think, yeah, you're all getting it, right? Now, it's interesting. Somebody wrote the format isn't consistent. I agree with that. Now, what's the point of consistency? I'll answer it. The point of consistency is to make it faster for them to understand what they need to understand from your resume. That's the whole point. If you're inconsistent, it's confusing. Now, keeping that in mind, remember the whole goal of when you write a resume is to make it easy for them to understand why they should hire you and not the competition in the 15 seconds or less they're looking at your resume. So speed is essential, and that ease of understanding. So anything that helps that is good. Now, consistency can help that, but sometimes you want to break that rule because, again, there are no rules, right? It's all about showing them how you can help them. That's the only rule, showing them how you can help them quickly. In this case, we were inconsistent. My client was inconsistent because she thought it would make it, in this case, it would help her make the case. For example, look at this most recent job, acting VP of finance. Look what she did here. Remember before, by the way, before she had she had consultant. That's all she had here, right? Now she replaced consultant with acting VP of Finance, Chief Accounting Officer, and consultant. So she was able to put these titles in, and now it's more relevant, right? And since healthcare is not what she's focused on media companies. She de-emphasized Carmen Health Analytics and emphasized her job title, which is now relevant. In the job afterwards, she wanted to emphasize that it was a media company, and so she chose to change the emphasis, and she really capitalized the name of the company and even reversed the order. She put the company on top and then the title below, because she wanted to emphasize the company. Now, that's an individual choice, but in her case, it made sense. She felt it would be faster for them to understand. Yes, she did have that media company experience. Okay, so that's how you need to think about your resume. These rules, forget about all these rules. It's all about serving that one rule that we talked about, that one golden rule. Other things that she did, like, she did things like, she made these bullets accomplishment oriented. So if you look at the before resume, up here, right? The before resume said like, led the fast track sale process of a non-core media business. If you look, just to pick one thing, after it said led the fast track sales process of a non-core media business, leading to 20 million in revenue. That, do you see how much more powerful that is? If you could put that accomplishment in there. Now, sometimes it's hard to say what was the accomplishment. Maybe you don't have a number. Maybe you improved something, but you're not sure how much. Well, maybe you could say substantially increased, or recognized for substantial improvement, or something like that. You can use, if you can't put the numbers in, try to use words that capture the improvement. But the goal is to try to take all these bullets and make them accomplishment oriented. When I'm working on resumes with clients, a lot of times what I'm doing is simply saying, okay, look, you have this thing you said you did. Did you do it well? Oh, you did do it well? Okay, how do you know? How do you know you did it well? And then they'll start telling me, I'll say, all right, let's put that in the resume. That's the thing the approach you need to take when you're looking at your resume, okay? The other thing this client did, by the way, is she put this section in here, right? So a lot of times people say, I'm uncomfortable talking about all these great successes I had. It feels like bragging to me. Well, it's only bragging if it's not about evidence. If you say excellent or exceptional business analyst or exceptional project manager, anybody could say exceptional. That just seems like, well, you're just saying that. That doesn't mean a thing. That feels like bragging. If you say managed over 100 projects, every one was delivered on time and on budget, that's the proof right there. It's better than saying exceptional, because you're saying, yeah, look, they were all done on time and on budget and received highest satisfaction scores or something, right? There's the evidence. Way, way better than you just saying exceptional. That's not bragging, right? And even better, like if you want to give a sense of how people think about you, you might even add a section like this. Is what she did. She said, I have some recommendations on my LinkedIn. I have some performance reviews. I'm going to pull out some words and phrases from those reviews and recommendations, so the people looking at the resume can get a sense of what others think of me. Exceptional leader and team player, commands respect. You get the idea, right? Sets an excellent example. If you can do this, this is great. If you have these quotes somewhere. If you don't have the quotes, you can always just put something like viewed by colleagues as, and then describe how you're viewed. Anyway, so that's the after resume. I think it's good to see that all of you felt that commented at least thought it was stronger, because I agree, it's much more effective. And let's keep going. So I want to talk about the summary section for a second, right? So the way you want to think about this summary section, it's so important. You should have this summary section. And the reason you want the summary section is, number one, it's in a very efficient way, shares why they should hire you or why they should consider you over your competition. It is essentially your pitch, your value proposition, if you do it the right way. It's very concise. They don't have to figure it out by looking through your whole resume. You're making it easy for them to understand the value you're going to bring, okay? And in order for you to do that effectively, you need these elements. They need to understand, where do you fit into the org chart? What box are you into the organizational chart, right? So this part categorizes you, what box you're in. This part differentiates you. What things like 10 years experience, consistently improved organizational effectiveness, bring talent assessment, user experience. These models, Addie, Sam, Kirkpatrick, these are models in the field of learning and development. Oh, that's interesting. Those are interesting differentiators. And you can do this. Remember, they're looking at this 15 seconds. In 4 seconds, they know what box you're in and what differentiates you. In the remaining 11 of the 15 seconds, you get across your greatest hits. So they don't have to go looking on page 2 for that fantastic thing, right? Pull the highlights or summarize the highlights from your chronological resume. And then lastly, you can put in how viewed, which we just talked about. So that's what you need to do. And if you do this the right way, we're going to talk about this more, this becomes an outline for your pitch. We're going to talk about the pitch later on in this webinar. So that's how you want to think about this. Okay, let's take a look at a couple more examples. So I want to show you this one because I want you to understand something really, really important about crafting resumes. So you could see on the top, she wrote senior sales professional, right? She was looking to run a team of business development people or salespeople. But she never held the job senior sales professional. That was never her job title. So how could she get away with calling herself a senior sales professional if she never had the job title? Well, and I'll tell you what, and listen to this. Her experience was in her most recent job, she actually had a business. She was a psychotherapist. She had a psychotherapy practice and she helped people with their, psychological and emotional problems to feel better about themselves. Prior to that, she was a diet and health center counselor. And prior to that, she was a gift business owner. So where's the senior sales professional in that, right? Not obvious. But what she said is, in each of those jobs, I did things that were related to sales, even though it was only a small part of each job. So for my psychotherapy practice, I had to get and retain clients. For my gift business, my diet and health center counseling for the diet and health centers in Connecticut, she had to get and retain clients. Same thing for her gift business when she was a gift business owner. So she just took those pieces of her job. Maybe that was only 20% or 10% of what she did. And she made that 100% of her resume. So like you can see, like instead of saying, helped people, she didn't write like psychotherapist. She didn't put that here. She wrote president and founder because it's more relevant, right? So that's how you need to think. You need to say, she didn't put diet and health center. She didn't put counselor. She put director, public speaker, right? So she wanted to put things that were relevant to what they cared about. So this is a super, super important point. Your resume should not be a literal list of everything you did just the way you described it at the time you were doing it. The people you're reaching out to hire you don't want that. What they want is, how can you help me? Tell me how you can help me. I don't have a lot of time. I just have a few seconds. Make it easy for me to understand why you versus the competition. If you start throwing in all the stuff that's not relevant to them, it's going to hurt you, but it's also going to hurt them. It's going to hurt them because now they don't get to see how good you are. It's taking too long. So they move on and they miss an opportunity to hire somebody great. That is you. Okay. So it hurts both you and them. So your resume should be about picking and choosing what to emphasize, what to de-emphasize, or even leave out. So you can make the resume relevant to what they're looking for. So important. Okay. So that's what this is all about here. I wanted to show you this. Okay. So, all right, let's keep going. Let's look at one more. And this is just a similar example. Like this is a client who was going for a human resources job. Let me make this a little larger. Hold on, see if I can do that. Okay. Okay, hopefully you can see it better. So she was going, if you just move this here, Leslie wanted to make clear that he had relevant HR experience in education because he was going for education. So he highlighted older experience up front in his summary section. So he was trying to make like a bit of a industry or sector change. So he wanted to, but previously you could see vice president human resources at a pharmaceutical company. That was his most recent job. He'd been doing that for a while. Prior to that, he was in a school district, right? But in the summary, they don't see his most recent job as defining him. What they see is right at the top, right? Largest independent school district, right? Including at the largest independent school district and in Pennsylvania and a top performing business school. So they see right away stuff that's relevant to the job target he's going for. Possess a doctorate of education. Also, one of the bullets he put in the summary section. So they have to go to the education section at the bottom of the resume to see that he's got this very important education-related degree. So that's the power of the summary section. It fixes problems. If you are trying to make a career change or an industry change, or you have gaps in your experience or your resume, the summary section can take the most relevant things in your experience and put them all in one place at the top, so the gaps aren't so obvious, or they're not looked at as gaps. All right, so that's what this is about here, right? And you can look at all these examples more on your own. It's the same idea, right? With the bulleted accomplishments and all that, right? The summary section, same stuff, okay? So let me go back out here. Okay, so let's talk about, so that's some guidance on how you should be writing your resume. And let's talk about some common resume issues. So sometimes I'll see resumes where people moved around a lot, like they had 5 jobs in 6 years. Now, sometimes you can't do anything about that, but sometimes you can, And the problem with jumping around is that people think, oh, you're not going to stick around very long. You're going to leave again after 6 months. So we don't want to hire somebody who's going to only be here 6 months. Or they might think, well, maybe you just can't keep a job. Maybe there's something wrong with you, right? So it's good to try to not look like you jumped around if you can. And a couple of ways you could do that is, one, maybe you could just leave out something. Maybe there's something you had a job for 3 or 4 months and you could just leave it out. So it's one less thing you did, looks like you did, and they're never going to find it if they do a Google search on you. Remember, they're always Googling you, right? So make sure you should Google yourself to see what comes up. And so maybe if they don't see that job come up, just leave it out, Or like I had another thing you could do is maybe sometimes you can group jobs into under one category so it looks less like jumping around. For example, I had a client who was had done a lot of consulting related things. She worked for a consulting firm. She did consulting. So we just had this whole consulting heading with all our consulting related experience that was like 5 consulting roles in 6 years under one consulting heading that was, for a 6-year time span. So it didn't look like she jumped around so much. So that's some of the stuff you can do. Sometimes people have gaps in their resume. Maybe you've been out of work for a while. Maybe it's been a long time since you've had a job. Maybe you're just coming back into the workforce after, raising a family or whatever. If you have a gap, it's not the end of the world, number one. But the longer the gap is, the more people might think, well, you know what? You're not current, you're rusty, you don't know what's really going on. So it does help to try and fill that gap. And there are a couple of ways to do it. First off, you could say what you're doing. Like what I would do is maybe come up with something to fill the gap. Like maybe you could say something like, I'll give you an example. Like what I would do if I had a big gap in my resume and I was looking for a job is I would join an association that represented my job target. So if you're in marketing, for example, joining the American Marketing Association or whatever it is, right? And I wouldn't just join, I would get involved. I would help run a committee, maybe get on the board, so people know me, and also I can put that on my resume that I'm doing this work for the association. Sure, you're not getting paid for it, but you don't have to put that in the volunteer section. It's valid work experience. It should be at the top of the chronological portion of your resume. So there might be something like that. Or maybe you've done some work for free. Like I had a client who was an interior designer. She graduated with a degree in interior design. She couldn't get a job, but she was helping a lot of people, just not getting paid for it. She was doing barter and she was helping friends, but it was serious work. So she put down like consultant. She was doing interior design for herself, for her own business, even though she wasn't getting paid or she was getting paid in unconventional ways. So you can do that, okay? The other thing you could do is maybe you've taken a couple of classes. Maybe just list the courses you put up top as like experience, like continuing education. That could be the job title. And just list some of the courses to fill that gap so it doesn't look like you're rusty. Okay? So just think about that. Age issue. Sometimes I hear people say, Rob, you know what? I'm too old. They're going to see it on my resume. It's a problem, right? I just want to say it's usually not an issue. You could leave stuff off at the bottom. You could leave off dates from education. I mean, Like I had a client who's got experience back into the 1970s. I mean, she's like in her 60s, you know? And so is that experience really relevant to them? Do they care? And, we just took it off. I mean, it does make her seem really old, and we don't have to throw it in their faces. So we just left it off the resume. If they ask, she can put it in, if there's some issue that comes up. Nobody's going to have an issue with that. But I want to also say age usually isn't an issue. What is an issue is things like you're just coasting till retirement, or you're going to want too much money, or you won't fit in. You won't like working for somebody a lot younger than you. Those are the underlying issues. If it's about too old, right? That's really what's going on. So how do you combat that? You show enthusiasm. You show you understand that you get them. Do that in the cover letter, in your emails and communications, and when you're talking to them. Show that you're really interested, and that'll overcome all those objections. Dated experience. This is what we were talking about before. So some you don't want to throw stuff in that's really old, that's totally not relevant, like word processor operator, right? But if sometimes I had a client who was in IT, the stuff he was doing 3 years ago was no longer relevant. Nobody was using that software anymore. So we just left it off his resume. That was only 3 years old, but we left it off. I had another client, what she had done 20 years earlier, she was involved in a nonprofit helping developing countries get funding from these global, nation building organizations, like the UN or development organizations. Then she went to the corporate world, and now she wanted to stop working in the corporate world and go back to what she was doing with that development fundraising for countries, developing countries. And her most relevant experience was 20 years old. That was at the very top of the summary section of her resume. They loved it because it was exactly what she had been doing 20 years ago. So that's what I mean by no rule, okay? So in summary, resume do's and don'ts. Have a summary section. Make sure your summary matches your pitch. Make sure your resume positions you for your job target. We talked about this, right? You got to keep that audience in mind. Go beyond responsibilities, add the so what, the impact, the accomplishments. Use the jargon of your target, not your last job. Make sure you're talking about the things that remember that first resume where she was talking about help build a customer service function? That's not about what she was going for. That was her last job. That's not the media company finance job she wanted, right? Use boldface and underline for emphasis, single sentences, bullets, very short paragraphs, action verbs, white space for easy reading. Don't have dense paragraphs. Don't have an objective unless you're an undergrad, unless you're a student. Objective is all about you. It's not about them. I don't want it to be about you. I want it to be about them. It's always about them when you're in a job search. Always use a chronological format. Don't use a non-chronological format. People sometimes say, Rob, I have this unconventional experience. Maybe I should use some kind of other format than chronological. The problem with that is they're going to see something that's not chronological, and they're going to get confused because they're used to seeing chronological. The reverse chronological format. And they're going to be like, what are you doing? Are you trying to hide something? Or I don't understand what you're doing. And they're just going to, time's up, they're done. They're not looking at your resume anymore. They're looking at somebody else's. So you got to use the chronological format. If you have problems, gaps, issues, unconventional experience, that's what the summary section is for, okay? Don't throw in no kidding phrases like results-oriented problem solver. Who here is not a results-oriented problem solver? Don't even bother the chat because I know all of you are results-oriented problem solvers. Don't throw these words in that everybody knows, okay? Don't be overly concerned about resume length as we discussed. So that's it. That's resumes. And what I want to do now, just one more time for people that came late, if you want to get the slides, get the examples, and get this LinkedIn profile checklist, you can go to this link, bit.ly/WP, and today's date, 3/23/21, and you can get the slides. And you don't need www in front of it, just type this link into your browser. Okay, let's talk about LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn, you want to be on LinkedIn. Again, I'll take questions about 10 after 7. You want to be on LinkedIn because LinkedIn makes everything easier. And a very important reason also, they're looking for you on LinkedIn. Every recruiter, every search firm is sourcing candidates on LinkedIn. half of hiring managers, people you would work for, are sourcing candidates on LinkedIn. They're saying, before they even reach out to HR or a search firm to say, well, oh, we're going to need to hire somebody, they say, who's in my network? Who do I know? Let me do a search on LinkedIn to see if I can see someone who might be good, or someone who knows somebody who might be good, because I'd rather get the names from the network. That's how most interviews are gotten these days. I want you to be found in those searches, right? So that's what, for that reason alone, you want to have a good presence on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn has paid features, but I would say free is going to work for you for the most part. So don't worry about the paid features for now. Just stick with free. LinkedIn, I think most of you, if not all of you, know this, but I'll just say it really quickly in case somebody doesn't. The way LinkedIn works is like you have first, second, and third degree connections. So your first degree connections are people you connected with or who asked you to connect and you accepted their invite. That's your immediate network. They have their own first degree connections. That's your second degree. And those second degree have their own first degree. That's your third degree. Okay. So if you think about it, from these just 381 connections, you can get over 5 million, access to over 5 million people, 5 million profiles. But it's even more than that if you join LinkedIn groups, because you can message people in groups. You can't message all these people second and third degree, at least not for free, because you can only message people in your immediate first degree network and people in your LinkedIn group. But anyway, you can get introductions. Through your first degree, you can see who your first degree knows, and then you can get introductions to your second degree, which is a fantastic way to meet people who might be able to hire you. Excuse me. Okay, so as I start to say, you want to use LinkedIn for everything, okay? And it just makes everything easier in the job search. Getting interviews, doing job target research, having a presence that's not just your resume, which makes you maybe it's a little bit softer, not like please hire me. Sometimes you don't always want to convey that. You want to just have an informational meeting. Well, show them your LinkedIn profile, helps you keep in touch with your network, okay? So we're going to talk about the way you want to work with LinkedIn is getting set up properly and then using it. So we're not going to have time to really get into using it, but I want you to get set up properly, which is going to help you to be found. I want you to at least be found, and we'll just touch briefly on what it means to use LinkedIn. We just only have so much time, Now, what I want to say is getting set up properly involves these things in blue: writing your profile, and then building your network strategically and joining groups. And you want to do your profile first, because there's only one chance to make a great first impression. But now you see these things sort of in green. Before you write your profile, you want to restrict access, and then you want to open up access. What I mean by restrict access is you want to turn this option to no. Share job changes, education changes, and work anniversaries for profile. Turn that to no, because if you don't turn it to no, LinkedIn's going to broadcast your changes to your profile to your entire network, which might not be good if you're connected to your boss or people at work, or even if you're not. If you're making a lot of changes on your profile, it's just unprofessional to have this message go out every time you make another change to your profile while you're still figuring it out. So I'll just show you where that is really quick. I mean, and we're not going to have time to show every button, where to press everything. But you can see on LinkedIn, go to the me icon and click settings and privacy. You'll find it under there. By the way, the help feature is very good. You just type in, how do I, do what Rob just said, or how do I close an account or remove a connection or something, it'll tell you how to do it, okay? Now, let's talk about the resume versus LinkedIn profiles. I would advocate that you use the resume's verbiage wherever possible, because you just did all this hard work to make a fantastic resume. And there's a lot of similarities. I mean, your resume has accomplishment-oriented bullets. You want the same thing on your LinkedIn profile. Your resume has a powerful summary section. You want the same on a LinkedIn profile. Your resume is targeted to a particular audience. You want the same thing on your LinkedIn profile. So try to not reinvent the wheel, but just copy and paste. But whenever possible is very important, because sometimes you just can't do that, because LinkedIn is different in important ways from your resume. So these are the reasons why you might need to change your LinkedIn profile to make it different from your resume. The first reason is You can and should have different versions of your resume for different job target. Job target being a combination of position description and type of organization, like industry or whatever. With LinkedIn, you can only have one profile. If you have two accounts, you need to close one. It's going to ruin the power of LinkedIn to help you. You don't want to do that. Trust me, you don't want to split up your network. So since you can only have one profile, you got to decide, should I go broader and encompass multiple job targets? Well, that means I won't exclude any job target, but I'm watering down my message for any one of those targets, okay? Because you're being more broad in how you describe yourself. You're watering down your message. Or should I be very targeted, like just pick one of my job targets, essentially one of my resumes? Well, that's good for that one target, but you're missing out on other targets. So what's the right answer? There is no right answer. There's no one size fits all. It really depends on your unique situation. This is a conversation you and I would have to have. For example, you have to think about what makes sense for me. Should I be more broad and there are consequences to that? Or should I be more targeted and take those consequences? So think about that, but just keep it in mind. Another thing is just a handful of people see your resume. 100,000 people are going to see your LinkedIn profile, or could. So what does that mean? Does that mean you need to change your profile to make it different from your resume because so many more people can see it? Well, I would say try not to change it because you worked really hard on your resume. And, I would try to keep those numbers in there, keep those accomplishments in there. But sometimes you may have to change it because, like for some things like maybe some dollar amount you put in your resume, it's okay if a handful of people see it, but somebody's going to get upset. They're going to say, hey, that's proprietary, right? Like if the dollar amount's considered proprietary, well, maybe like instead of saying increased revenue 37 million, you could say increased revenue by 10%, right? Or maybe you said something in your resume that somebody who might see your profile that you work with might say, hey, you didn't do that, right? Well, then change it. Even if you know you did it, but they might have some issue with it. Change it on your profile. Another difference, this is really important. LinkedIn profile does not mean you're looking for a job. It doesn't mean you're looking for a job. So should you tell people that you're looking for a job? Should you say open to the next great opportunity, open to the next great exciting challenge, looking for a job? I'll just tell you the answer. The answer is no. You don't want to say you're looking. And the reason is, first off, people say, I got to tell people I'm looking because how are they going to know I'm looking? How are they going to know to contact me? The truth is, they're going to contact you anyway. In fact, they're more likely to contact you if you don't advertise that you're looking. There's a well-known bias against unemployed and actively looking. They call these, I've trained tons of recruiters on LinkedIn, I know this. They call people who are actively looking active candidates. The ones who are passively looking or don't look like they're obviously looking, they call them passive candidates. They prefer passive candidates. Now, it doesn't mean if you're actively looking, you're not going to get found or they're not going to contact you, but it might hurt your chances a little bit. So, and you don't need to do it. It's not going to help you. Okay. So, and the last thing is you'll get the wrong kind of attention. You're looking, you're going to get contacted by all these unscrupulous search firms, people you don't want to be involved with. And now there's a new feature that LinkedIn has out there that's controversial. I like part of it and I don't like the other part of it. Okay. Some of you may know this. It's called open to work. Okay. So if you go to the add profile section, or it's even on your dashboard, if you go, let me just go to my profile. You'll see it right here. Open to work, right? Open to work. So what you want to do is click on it and choose this option, share with recruiters only. Do not choose this option, share with all LinkedIn members. When you choose this option, share with all LinkedIn members, it puts this graphic around your picture that says open to work. You don't want that graphic on there for all the reasons we just discussed. It will not help you despite what LinkedIn says. LinkedIn says, oh, they get many more contacts, but they get the wrong kinds of contacts. Okay, that's the issue. I've seen it happen with my clients already. That's why I came to this conclusion. The share with recruiters only, you do want to check off because what LinkedIn does is it shows recruiters who have access to LinkedIn's $5,000 or $7,000 a year LinkedIn recruiter package. It shows those small subset of recruiters that you are open to another role. And if they're using that field to do searches, you want to be found in their searches. So it's only a small subset of recruiters that are going to see this. And if they're using a field, you might as well check it off. So then they're going to find you. If you want to read more about this, I wrote a whole article on my website. The link is right here. It's on my blog. It's on my website. Job seekers, be careful using LinkedIn's new open to work feature, right? You can read it there, just to get more understanding, okay? Another exception I would make, in addition to share with recruiters only, is turn this to yes. Signal your interest to recruiters at companies you've created job alerts for. So if you're interested in a company, say you want to work at Pfizer, you go to Pfizer, on their page, on their company page, in LinkedIn Pfizer's company page, you can you can follow them, right? But you can also create a job alert on their company page. You can also turn this to yes in the settings and privacy section, and you can also turn this to yes when you create a job alert, which is you do when you go to jobs and you search postings, right? And once you're happy with your search, you can put in criteria like company name. You put company Pfizer in there, right? You list that. And then you could turn the alert on. Now you have a job alert for Pfizer. So you can signal interest to recruiters, companies that way. So this is what we said before. If you have no current job, try to fill in the gap. Consulting, volunteer experience, because some recruiters use the current job title field in their searches. So try. If you can't, it's okay. Sometimes you can't. But especially if the gap is growing and growing and growing more than like 2 or 3 months, I would try to fill it if you can, the way we discussed. Last difference is LinkedIn is social media. Resumes are old-fashioned media. So social media means you don't have to just stick with the LinkedIn, with the resume language. If you can, if you want to, action verbs, created, led, or you can use I created, I led, because it's social, right? Don't make it third person. Don't say Robert Hellman created, Robert Hellman led on LinkedIn. It shows you don't get social media. It's also off-putting. It's not conducive to building relationships, which is what LinkedIn's about. Now, the key to being found, this is super important. Okay, super important. The key to being found is keywords. If you don't have the words in your profile, then they're searching on, you're not going to be found, right? And also profile completeness, because it's related to keywords. The more complete your profile is, the more likely you'll have more places you'll have to put those keywords in that'll help you to be found. So you want to know if you have the right profile keywords. So the first thing I would do is I would think, go on LinkedIn and think, what would they be typing in? Let me go back to my thing, right? What would they be typing in to find someone like me, right? So say you're like a business analyst. I'm making this up. Say you're a business, you're thinking like, you know what? They're going to probably type in business analyst in pharmaceuticals or something like that, right? Or maybe let's say business analyst. They're typing it in. So they're going to type in business analyst. So let's just see what happens if we type in business analyst. Let's just do it. This is like a very primitive search. They'll do much more sophisticated searches if they're searching for a business analyst. But I just want to show you very quickly. Do a people search with these keywords, business analyst, right? Look, we got over almost 11 million results, right? They're going to do much more targeted searches. But look, the number person who comes at the top has business analyst right in their headline, right at the top, business analyst at McKinsey. Prior job title, business analyst. Business analyst, right here again. Prior job title, business, The words are in here. Business, if they put quotes around it, it's going to, very often they'll put quotes, right? Okay. You'll see like business analyst all over the place, right? Business analyst, current job, right? Current job. Here's the word analyst in the past role. You get the idea. You see how important these keywords are to showing up at the top of these search results. The other thing, while we're here, I just want you to look at it. Look at almost everybody here has pictures. If you don't have a picture up here, they're gonna be like, well, why don't you have a picture? What are you hiding something? You need to have a picture. And let's look at these pictures. What kind of picture? Now, remember, this is about building a relationship. You want them to click on you. Not only just find you in these search results, but click on you. So this guy it's really far away. You can barely see his face, right? Cam. I don't think that's a great picture. It's not like, hey, let's have a great conversation, right? This one is great. This one is great, right? He's looking right into the camera. He's smiling. Same with her, looking right into the camera, smiling. Pretty good, a little far away. This one's great. Most of these are really good. I don't think she's really smiling here. I wouldn't say that's optimal. She's not really looking a little away, but you want to look right into the camera, look professional, smile a little bit, make eye contact with them, i.e. with the camera. Okay? That's what you want to do. So, okay, so that's the biggest thing, right? So let's talk about the headline. You could see the headline is keyword rich. You know, if you look at this one, human resources business partner, that was my client. I said, well, what types of words would they be using to find you? She said, well, they would type in human resources business partner. So we made sure that was part of her headline. What other words? Well, maybe performance management, talent acquisition, talent development, total rewards. We threw all those words in. So the way I would think about this headline, it's a keyword rich beginning of your pitch, how to categorize you and what differentiates you from the competition. Okay? That's how I would think about it, right? So this vertical line separates the how to categorize you from the differentiators. Okay, you can do it in Microsoft Word, so you can copy and paste these bullets right into LinkedIn. You can't get these in natively. And the headline is right here. All right, so if I go, this is this part right under my name. Mine, you can see how keyword rich mine is. Okay, so, okay. Now, this is also pretty important. Okay, what I want to say about this is you want a company name that LinkedIn recognizes. If they know that if they have a company page on LinkedIn, like I could have written, this is my profile, right? I could have put NY University instead of, right, and just spelled New York University the way I wanted to. But then LinkedIn wouldn't have known that I was talking about the New York University that like a million other people on LinkedIn worked at as well. Because if LinkedIn knows that, it'll say, oh, you work there? I know all these other people that work there. They're also in our system. So I'll connect you with them and I'll offer them to connect to you. It helps you to connect with people, right? So you want to try to get the company name in there. You also want to try to go beyond just the job titles that were I could have just said adjunct instructor. That's what I was at NYU, right? But what I did was I added these other keywords, career development, career coach, because they're searching on these keywords to find me, right? I want to be found for career coach. I want to be found for presentations, for LinkedIn training, right? So that I want to make sure those keywords are in my profile wherever I can put them. So remember how we did that search before and a lot of the keywords came up in people's job titles when we look for business analyst? That's why I did this. That's how I did this. So you might want to try and do the same thing, okay? What I want to say about this is there's skills section. Let me just show you really quickly. Let me just get to it. Okay, hold on. The skills and section, right? Don't worry about endorsements. Nobody cares about them. Just trust me. It's a poorly implemented feature. Do worry about skills. This is the one place you can do keyword stuffing. Just think of every permutation of what you do and put it in here. You can do up to 50 skills. But do worry about recommendations. I would challenge you to get at least 3 recommendations. You don't have to get 47 like me. But these recommendations really mean something. People put their reputations on the line to recommend you. And don't just give. Give recommendations too. It looks good and it's a nice way to live. So I would recommend that. All right. So, okay. So I think that's what I have what I want to share, just the last thing on LinkedIn, is I have this whole profile checklist that you're going to get when you get the slides. And you can just make sure you did all these things we talked about, a complete profile, keyword-rich headline, all that stuff, okay? Use all 50 slots in the skills section, the right organization name, make sure you do all that. Okay, so let's go through, we don't need this, we just covered it. So I want to talk about your pitch to end this, and then I'm going to take questions. So your pitch, it's actually pretty easy right now because we already covered a lot of your pitch when we talked about the resume. So but I want to describe what I mean by your pitch. Okay. So give me 1 second here. So your pitch, you want to use it there's different versions of your pitch at work, but you want to use it like for networking situations, interviews, informational meetings, answers to questions like what brings you here, tell me about yourself, any of those open-ended questions you get in interviews, making a memorable impression that differentiates you. That's the purpose of your pitch. Like those open-ended questions in an interview, tell me about yourself, that's a rehearsed answer you want to give into your pitch. All right, it's a concise value proposition that you're sharing with them. Here's why you should care about me, why you might want to hire me versus the other candidates, right? It's got to be conversational. In interviews, you have 2 minutes, and that's what we're gonna be discussing today, the 2-minute interview pitch. Make it conversational. Don't make it sound like you're reading from a script. It should be natural, so it doesn't sound memorized, okay? And the way you want to organize your pitch, if you have 2 minutes in an interview pitch, you want to bring in all 6 elements of the pitch. Now, we already covered elements 2 through 5, 2 through 5 in the summary section of the resume. And so but we didn't do element 1. Element 6 is turn it back to them, meaning like, I'm excited to be talking to you, and then you tell them why you want to work there and ask them a question. But element 1 is not in the resume. It's not in the summary section. Let's talk about that first, and then I'll show you how we already covered elements 2 through 5 by doing the summary section. So element 1 is like something that grabs their attention, something that will wake them up. Like, so I had a client, like, for example, who was an IT professional. He was like, VP of information technology. He started off his pitch saying, like he started off his resume, 15 years of experience. Oh, tell me about myself. Sure, I have 15 years of experience in information technology. I'm currently a vice president. It's all fine, right? But kind of generic, what everyone says. I said, what makes you great? What makes you really good at what you do? He said, I can make PCs dance. I said, that's the beginning of your pitch. So when they said, tell me about yourself, he said, well, I can make PCs dance, right? I had another client and then he went into the 15 years of experience in information technology and all that, right? I had another client who said, I turn data into actionable knowledge. I'm a business, as a business analyst, I've spent my whole career turning data into actionable knowledge. That's sort of interesting, actionable insights. It's not like I've been a business analyst for 10 years. You could say that, but say it next. Start with this hook, something that is the essence of your value, right? I had a client who's a research chemist. I can catalyze anything. I can catalyze any reaction. That's how he started off his pitch. What's it for you? Like, it's a little creative. This is the hardest part of the pitch. Now, you can look at these and think about it. Now, this is a summary section, and you can see that elements 2 through 5 are in here, right? And let's right. This is what we discussed before, right? So I can even do this pitch. I can do elements 2 through 5 just by skimming through this right now. I haven't looked at this in I don't know how long. I haven't rehearsed this. I'm just going to do it, right? Okay, so tell me about myself. Sure. As a finance director, I bring over 10 years of experience in the media industry. I'm also a CFA charter holder, and I've experience with M&A, financial planning and analysis, and I've worked at some big media companies like Viacom, NBC Universal, and HarperCollins. Just to give you a couple of examples so you can see how I can help you. So when I was at Viacom, I actually had a major role in a division restructuring where I supported profit growth that turned around the company from negative 10% to plus 15%. In fact, I received an award for outstanding performance for contributing to that turnaround. I also reduced costs by as much as 25%, while at the same time enhancing revenue. I had a key role in dozens of mergers and acquisitions. And, I think if you talk to people, they would tell you that in addition to my strong technical skills, I think I've been described as a thought leader, someone who's a little bit ahead of the curve while at the same time being a team player. And I'm excited to be talking to you. You see how I did that? That's your pitch minus the branding part, that part up front. That's the items 2 through 5 of your pitch. That's it. If you do this the right way, you've got your pitch right here. Just take the summary section of your resume, pick and choose elements from it, and make it conversational. Like I did, you're done. Okay? So that's that. Now, if we had another 3 hours, I'd have you try the pitch. There's a lot more we could do, but there's only so much time, and I'm sure you only have so much time and attention. So I want to take your questions. So again, this is the link to get the slides and get the LinkedIn profile checklist. Let's see what questions you have. Type them into the chat feature, and I want to hear them.
Okay, so we have a few that have come in already, so I will start reading them off to you. So the first is related to the resume. If we include quotes from LinkedIn recommendations, should we put them at the top of the resume?
Oh, I would put I think you should put them just where I showed you, in the summary, at the bottom of the summary section, in italics. Just like this. This is the top of the summary. This is the summary section, right? This is the top of the resume, but it's the bottom. It's the only part of the resume that's more like, what do you like to work with? Everything else in the resume is either responsibilities or accomplishments. This is more like, what do you like on the job? That's what these quotes are about, right? I don't want you to put quotes in that say great at reducing costs, because you already said that. Reduced it by as much as 25%. You don't need that kind of quote. What you need is a quote that like, what do people think of you? What do you like to work with? Okay? So, okay, great question. Next question.
So next question, is there a place on LinkedIn to list scientific publications like a CV would have?
Yeah, what you should do is you should go to, sorry, 1 second here. Go to add profile section, right? Go to this section and see what you can fill in there. And there's a lot of experience, licenses and certifications. You can do, you can even list things in the summary section. By the way, this summary section of the profile is essentially the summary section of your resume. If you're going to use that approach where you're just making your resume mirror and your profile similar, you can almost copy and paste the summary section of your resume into the about section of your profile, which is this top part right up here, right? See more? It's all this, okay? Now, just going back to the add profile section, there's a lot of just places to put lots of different things. If it's not a perfect fit, we'll just fit it in somehow, find a place to do it, like accomplishments, publications, patents, courses. You could probably projects, honors, and awards. You're going to find a place for that stuff in here somewhere. Okay?
Great. All right, next question. Does the top item on a resume need to be the biggest or longest? The position I guess I recently had doesn't have a great deal of duties.
All right, so does the top part in a resume have to be? No, it doesn't. In fact, it could be the shortest if it's not relevant. Just going back to that, it's a great question. And just going back to the example, I'm going to go way back. Let me see if I can go. I don't even know. It might just be too hard. But if you remember that one where it was like customer, where there was like the first resume we looked at, where it was like consultant built a customer service function, there was like 2 lines on there. It's hardly anything. I mean, if it's not relevant, I would minimize it. You have to put something in. If it's your most recent job, maybe just put a couple of sentences in as a placeholder to show you were busy, and then get to the thing that you really wanted to see, which is the prior job before that. This is a bigger point, right? Which is all about not feeling you have to describe things just the way you might have described it right at the time you were doing it. It's all about choosing what you want to emphasize and de-emphasize so they can quickly understand how you can help them. Okay?
Okay, so this next question says, I'm a nursing major. Should I or can I add clinical experience from hospitals that were part of the school's nursing program and courses, or is it strictly for out-of-school experiences?
I'm sorry, we're part of the school's course. So you want to list clinical experience that were part of the school's courses. And so I guess on your resume, is that what you're thinking, Jenna?
I believe that's the question, if that should be included in the resume.
100% you should include it if it's relevant. If it's relevant to your audience, definitely include it and highlight it. A lot of times people do things like courses, like they'll, a lot of times people who just graduated recently, they don't have work experience or they're graduating and they've done some great projects. For you, it might be clinical experience. They take those projects and make them jobs. They don't lie, right? They say these are projects, but they build it out like it was a real accomplishment. You should definitely think about doing that if it's going to be relevant to what you're trying to get.
Next question is, should we include expired licenses or certifications just so they see what we were previously engaged in if it's somewhat related to our field? For example,
Yes.
an expired
Yes.
certification in physical therapy, but applying
Yes.
for a nursing job. Okay.
Yes, if it's relevant, I would do it. If it's not relevant, don't. Yep.
All right.
You don't have to mention expired. Just, put a year in there, or don't even put anything. Just, I mean, I don't want you to mislead them. I don't want them to think you're lying. But I don't want you to advertise either that you're there. So you got to just, in your situation, just figure out what would not be misleading, but at the same time isn't advertising some negative thing, about the licenses.
Yep. Okay. So this next one says, you touched on this earlier, but I worked in journalism for 12 plus years and have been in PR for the next 12 years. Since I pretty much only apply to PR jobs now, several people have suggested dropping the 12 years of journalism from my resume. Irrelevant and will hide my age, it says. I guess, what is your recommendation on that?
Well, I would have to talk to you more. I'll give you some pros and cons just thinking about it, right? So I'm just thinking that, like, 'cause I've worked with a lot of people in PR and a lot of people in journalism. And some people who are going to hire in PR like to see the journalism background. It adds some, it's a testament to your writing ability that you had a career in journalism. So in that sense, it could be a positive, right? The negative side is it could make you, like you said, look old and dated to have that in there. And you've had so much great PR experience, it doesn't matter anymore, the journalism thing. It really just doesn't matter so much. So I don't know the answer to that question without talking to you and looking at your resume and discussing it with you first. But those are some of the things you would consider. I don't think it's like a pat answer, include it or don't include it. It really depends a little bit. Yeah, but I could see how journalism, even if it was old experience in journalism, and even if you just mention it briefly, you don't have to have the whole listing every journalism job you had for over a 15-year period. Maybe you just have a couple, 2 or 3 lines in there. Prior experience as a journalist for 10 years, at publications including this, that, and the other. Just have like a couple, 1 or 2 sentences. That's enough, maybe. That might work for you.
Thanks, Rob. Okay. Next question. Do you recommend following the same resume format for teachers?
Yes, I do. And I've worked with teachers and I know it works. So now, sometimes if you want to be like if you're going for a university job, for adjuncts, it's no big deal, right? But if it's like a university job where they're looking for, sometimes they want like the whole curriculum, the CV, which is like every single thing you did. For most teachers, teaching jobs like middle school, high school, whatever, a resume like the ones we discussed is perfect. Yeah.
If you have 20 years with the same company and are looking for a position internally, do the same concepts apply or are there additional tips?
The same concept 100% apply. There are no additional tips. And I'll say the reason is the point of the resume is you want to show the hiring manager, whether they're internal or external, how you can help them in just a few seconds. Everything I share with you about how to do that is just as relevant whether you're going internally or externally. It's the same thing. So the only thing I would say is, but it's the same thing. I mean, you have to know your audience, right? Now your audience, if it's internal, may know some of the jargon that your external audience may not know. So in that case, you might throw in some jargon, some abbreviations, some acronyms that will be familiar to an internal audience. When you're going externally, if you throw words in like that, they're going to be like turned off. They're like, I don't know what this means. It's just like hurting you, right? So which is actually something we didn't talk about, but it just goes. It's just about keeping your audience top of mind. What's going to resonate with your audience? If they have no idea what the jargon is, Internal or external, leave it out or explain it or something, right? But don't just leave it in as jargon that they won't understand. If they will understand it, then keep it, if it helps to make your case. And internally, very often, you have more opportunities to use jargon that only they would be familiar with.
Great. All right, next question is regarding LinkedIn. So should LinkedIn recommendations be only from your supervisors or higher ups, or can it be from coworkers?
Your recommendations can be from anywhere. Okay, I mean, any recommendation. It's the quality of the recommendation. Yes, the person matters, but what matters as much or more is what is written. So if the I had a client once showed me a recommendation. It was so lame. It was something like, Susan worked in my area. She was very diligent. That's the best you could say. Something like that. Like, you can't do any more than that. I mean, now if this person wrote more, so like, she was very well respected, and she, I always enjoyed working with her, and she really was diligent in ensuring things got done on time. Like, then it becomes a really good recommendation. Now, if your friend writes your LinkedIn recommendation, well, a friend's a little weird, right? Because, like, what are they going to say? It's all about the audience. Like, who is going to read it that you want to impress? Who's going to read it that you want to impress? So you want to get people to write these recommendations that who can write something that would impress your audience. So I would think of it that way, not saying it should be a supervisor or this person or that person. Anybody that can write a recommendation that would impress your audience would be good. Very often that's a supervisor. It doesn't have to be, right? In fact, sometimes you don't want a supervisor because it could be a little weird somehow. In some cases, if you didn't get along well with your supervisor or something, don't put your supervisor in, right? Although, of course, with your recommendation, you don't have to, if they post a recommendation, you don't have to show it on your profile. You can hide it. So anyway, don't make it a one size fits all rule about who you should have on your recommendations list. Just make sure the recommendations, the people you're asking for recommendations, can write something that will resonate with the people you want to impress. And to ensure that, by the way, let me just add a couple more things. You might even offer, especially if they're very busy, you might say, like, look, I know you're busy. Well, if you want, I can draft a recommendation that you can then edit and change to make it your own, just to save you time. Some people will be really appreciative of that, and then you can make sure that the key points you want in that recommendation are in there. Now, another thing, or you could, if you don't want to do that, you could just say, listen, when you write them, thank you for offering to write the recommendation. When you write it, if you could really emphasize that thing we worked on together, or this thing, or this aspect, or that aspect, I'd really appreciate it. So you're guiding them. They'll like it. They'll want that. They'll want that help. Makes it easier for them. Okay, so there. That's my thought on recommendations.
Great. So I think this question goes back to the resume and LinkedIn profile. So if you work in corporate and are looking internally, should you list or leave off that you're pursuing your doctorate in organizational leadership?
I hate to keep saying this, but I would say, I'm sorry, but if it helps you to impress them and differentiate you from the competition in a good way, definitely put it in there, right? So if you're going for I'm just trying to think, like, if you're going for a job that requires all of your time, and they don't want to know that you're pursuing it, that, like, it's like a really intense job, and that you write that you're pursuing your doctorate, they're going to think like, well, I don't know if you're going to have time to do this job. That's not going to be great, right? So maybe then you don't want to do it. But if you're going for a job, and this is a lot of jobs where that kind of organizational leadership, that idea that you want to that get that kind of expertise will help the organization. Then I think you should definitely list it. And there are probably a lot of jobs where that would be helpful. So I think, but again, just be careful. Like, just always think, like, how is it my audience going to respond? How is this going to resonate with them? That's the answer. Just put yourself in their place. Imagine them reading it and say, will they like this? Or will they think, oh, she or he is not going to have time to do the work we need them to do?
So next question, we have a few more left here. So it's great to have all these questions coming in. So the question is, someone I recently interviewed with asked for references. Would it be okay to direct her toward my LinkedIn recommendations as well?
I think it's a great idea. I do that all the time. I get a lot of clients. I have a lot of clients. I have clients coming in all the time. I cannot, sometimes people say, can you give me references? I just can't do it because my references, they would be tortured. Like they'd be constantly called, just the nature of what I do. So I say, go look at my LinkedIn recommendations. It works. It's good. I mean, I have some good recommendations on there. So and I explain it to them why, For you might give them references and say, look at my LinkedIn recommendations. You might do both. Definitely. If they're good.
I think I'm looking through a couple other questions, but I think they've been addressed already. So let me just read through them. Okay, I think you've pretty much covered anything. So any final questions, feel free to type them into the chat box, or you can unmute and ask your questions before we go ahead and wrap up. So I'll give everyone another few seconds in case you have any final questions.
And if not, there might be one or two other things I could share.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything come in. So
Right.
Rob, if you have any final thoughts.
Yeah, I do. I want to talk to, because there's only just so little time. I really want to make sure you had your questions, but I want to talk a little bit more about a couple of things around LinkedIn. Okay, so just to wrap up, because I said, I wanted to make sure you understood how to get set up to be found, and I think we covered that, reasonably well. Now, what do you want to use LinkedIn for? Right? This I'll just in 2 minutes. I just want to give you some thoughts about this. You want to use LinkedIn at the minimum to find people who might be able to help you or to introduce you to people where you want to work. This is about tapping into the hidden job market. This is about, we're going to talk about this in a later webinar, about not just applying, but about, and this is how most people are getting interviews, getting an introduction. So what I would say, let's just come up with, I'm going to give you an example. This is the kind of thing you should be doing, all right? Just to keep it in mind. Let's do a hypothetical. Say you want to go work at Pfizer as a marketing director, and you're like, I would love to work there. I want to see if I know anybody or know somebody who knows somebody, so maybe I can have a conversation there and I can get on their radar in case something opens up. That's what you want to do. That's called tapping into the hidden job market, right? You really want to do this. So how do you do that? Well, click in the search box. Here's what you do. Don't even do anything yet. Just press enter. I'm pressing enter now. Don't type any search criteria. Now you're going to get a list of all these other search filters, right? I'm going to click companies. I'm going to search for the company first. So I'm going to search for company, Pfizer. Oops, Pfizer. Okay. And you could see, like, you could follow the company. There's a lot of stuff we're just not going to get to. There's a lot you can do here. But what I want to show you here is, you see where it says 114,913 employees? Click on that. So this looks like the right company, right? Just a lot of employees. I mean, there are lots of Pfizers. If you go look, but you want to make sure it's the right Pfizer. There's like 10 Pfizers. So click on this. Now you got 111,000 results. You're not going to go through all those results. These are all the people on LinkedIn that work at Pfizer that are your extended network. Go to all filters and narrow it down. You might narrow it down in a couple ways. Maybe go down to this. So look, if you look here, current companies already selected, right? Pfizer and then some affiliated companies. LinkedIn already did that for you by going to the company page. Then go to job title, all the way at the bottom. Go to title. You might put in marketing. And we said director, right? So anything director or above, you might say director, or I don't know, chief, or CMO, like chief marketing officer, or VP. Let me think. What am I thinking right here? Director or chief. All right, let's just leave it at that. Okay. Okay. Now, and you can see what you could do, like parentheses, and you can do quotes. You can do not. We don't have time to go into all that now. You can play around with this. You can go to the help feature and type in Boolean search. Type that word in Boolean search. It'll tell you all the ways you can do searches. You have to capitalize the ors and the ands, right? So oops. I don't think I think I have to do it again. Somehow it got away from me. Okay, let me type it again. And just to really quickly show marketing and, you know, director, or chief, or VP. I think let's just leave it at that, you know, or let's put, you know, senior vice, right? So like senior vice president, right? Let's just press enter now. Oh, hold on. 1 second. It's hidden. Show results. Okay, now we got 462. It's still a lot, right? But now you're finding the right people. Vice President, Global Marketing Insights at Pfizer, right? Senior Director, Pfizer Learning Academy, Marketing, right? You're finding the right people. Now, these second degree connections, these are people who I could get introduced to because I know the people in my network. I know Susan, I know Evelina, I know Costa. I know these people. So I can say, hey, I see that you're connected to Tony. What do you think? Can I use your name? I can ask, you know? So that goes to having a quality network on LinkedIn. You want to have a quality network on LinkedIn so you can use these search results to, you know, to help you get introduced, right? If these are a bunch of strangers, it would be useless to me to see these second degree connections. It wouldn't help me, right? Because, you know, Senior Director Global Marketing and Marty, right? I can use those second degree connections. So it's important you have a quality network of people you know in some way. You don't have to know them super well. Even if you just know them a little bit, it's good, okay? And you can go to My Network to increase your network if you haven't done that by importing your address book or by, you know, suggest people you may know based on what's in your profile. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that. You can also narrow this down more by going to all filters and saying like first and second degree. So only people, third degree is too far out. Maybe just people I'm either directly connected to or people who can introduce me to somebody. And then I click show results. Now I have only 16. This is a really good list of people I can get introduced to at Pfizer. That's what you should be doing. I just want to throw that in there. And I think we're good, right? 7:30?
Yeah, we're right on time. So thank you so much, Rob. I want to, again, extend a huge thank you for sharing your expertise with us. We really appreciate it. And I want to thank all of our alumni and students and community members who attended tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to be here with us. Just a reminder, the next session in this series will take place on April 27th, and it'll focus on the topic of get good at getting interviews, tap into the hidden job market. So be sure to register if that's something that you're interested in. And I hope you enjoyed the program. Look forward to seeing you at future activities and events, and hope you have a great evening. Good night.
Thanks, Jenna. Thanks, everybody. See you maybe next month. Take care. Bye-bye.